Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Dime Time. This time we are looking at the second round playoff series between the Boston Celtics and the Washington Wizards. Well, we all expected Jimmy Butler to show up, and we obviously expected a vintage game from Dwayne Wade. But what no one expected was playoff Rajon Rondo showing up. Now, playoff Rajon Rondo is a totally different beast altogether, and what he did was expose the weakness that the Boston Celtics have. We'll get to that in a moment, but let's talk about what the Celtics did in this series. The Celtics did everything that was expected from them in this series, but what was really important was that they won 4 games back to back in the face of adversity. And that adversity was not only just being down 2-0 to an 8th seed, despite being the 1 seed, they were 2-0 down to an 8th seed, but also having their best player lose his sister on the night of the start of the playoffs to a freak accident. Offensively, the team was marginally worse than their regular season numbers, but defensively is where the Boston Celtics showed the league how good they are. They continue to be an elite defensive team and shut down the Chicago Bulls for less than 100 points in the 4 games that they won back to back. No matter how you look at it, Isaiah Thomas was the star of this series. To put up 33 points on 56% shooting from the field and 43% from the 3-point line just one day after he finds out that his sister passed away in an accident is, in my opinion, is the stuff legends are made of. It's easy to look at his 23 points per game during this series and complain that, well, he was 6 points short of his regular season averages, but that would defeat the purpose of understanding what the Celtics achieved in this first round series. You needed to watch the games to understand that the Celtics rallied around their star, rallied around each other, had each other's back in this going down 2-0 and in the face of this insane adversity, and actually come back to win the series in 6 games. Avery Bradley, who everybody knows is an elite level defender, right? He is one of the top 5 one-on-one defenders in this league. He also grew as an offensive player this season, but he started off this series cold. That didn't really stop him though from suddenly elevating his game as the series went long, and then finished games 5 and 6 with 23 points and 24 points respectively, while shooting 66% from the field and a blistering 55% from the 3-point line. And don't forget, this is a guy who also was tasked with the insane assignment of guarding Jimmy Butler through large parts of the series and occasionally Dwayne Wade. So being that effective on defense and still putting up those numbers offensively from a guy like Avery Bradley, who isn't actually a legit star in the league, is phenomenal. To see that Bradley raised his game for the playoffs is something really encouraging for the Celtics. Everyone else on the Celtics played their part during this series. Horford struggled against Lopez. That was kind of expected because Lopez is a fairly solid defender. But Horford still managed to be effective both offensively and defensively. He was solid. Marcus Smart still played some incredible defense, something that he's always been known for. His offense is still a bit of a question, but I think they can manage with him at least contributing on one end of the floor for sure and not screwing up. Not that he needs to be a great offensive player, but he should not screw up on the offensive end. And everyone else, whether it be Jay Crowder, whether it be Gerald Green, whether it be Kelly Olynyk, all of them kind of played their roles and ensured that the Celtics moved on to the next round. This was exactly the series that I was hoping the Wizards actually faced. Now, I did predict them winning in 5, but to see the Hawks push them around in 2 games gave me confidence that they are now ready and prepared for the playoff road ahead. It's not going to get easier. Wall is really, really good. This is something we saw during the regular season. We saw him put up an MVP-like season, but during this first round playoff series, he was absolutely exceptional. He obliterated his regular season scoring average, going up to 29.5 points a game, while still dishing out 10.3 assists a game. And what was crazy is how efficiently he did this by shooting the ball of 53% from the field and 47.4% from the 3-point line. Those are exceptional numbers no matter how you look at it. His game 6 numbers with 42 points, 8 assists, 4 steals, 2 blocks and shooting 64% from the field, in my opinion, is one of the greatest playoff performances you will ever get to watch. Thankfully, Wall had Bradley Beal by his side, and Bradley Beal himself also upped his scoring numbers. He went up to 25.8 points a game, but more importantly and something that stood out about his first round playoff performance was that he had 3 30-point games in the 6 games that they played against the Hawks. Another ray of light, in my opinion, was the continuing emergence of Kelly Oubre Jr. as an elite defender. Now, around game 40 to 45 in the regular season, Oubre kind of made that leap into becoming a top 20 defender within the league. And now he continues to grow. He continues to emerge as that, which I don't think opposing teams should take lightly, because Kelly Oubre Jr. plays on the second unit. And if he is going to create that much havoc alongside Otto Porter Jr., by the way, who's also a great defender, if Oubre Jr. and Porter Jr. create that kind of havoc on a second unit, I don't think there are many playoff teams in the league that have a second unit that can deal with that kind of defensive intensity in a game. The rest of the Wizards team were, well, average. I mean, there are two ways to look at it. Either they were actually average, mediocre, and didn't really show up for the playoffs, or John Wall and Bradley Beal were just doing everything. So all the rest of the team had to just show up and be competent. Markieff Morris, obviously, in my opinion, has room for improvement from his first round series. And that improvement will come if he keeps his head in the game and not confronting opposing teams' players. A prediction here, I think Markieff Morris and Jay Crowder get into it during this series. I think there's already these two teams have already had a chippy past, and if there are two people I would place a bet on getting into a bit of a scuffle during this series, it would be Markieff Morris and Jay Crowder. Coming to the head-to-head matchup, now these two teams had a fairly chippy regular season. They split the games 2-2, and both the Wizards wins were blowouts, whereas the Celtics wins were relatively close. I don't necessarily see that as much of an indication of how this series is going to go, but that's something that we will come to in a bit. Concerns for Boston. In my opinion, there is one big concern that they have, which is trying to hide Isaiah Thomas on defense. Now, the reason why the Celtics usually hang in there with more elite teams is one of the guards on the opposing team tends to be between 6 and 6'3", and Isaiah kind of handles the defensive assignment there, while obviously taking help of the Boston team in general, because they're a great defensive team as such. But here, both Beal and Wall have an incredible size and power advantage over Thomas. The only hope that the Celtics have is to play Bradley and Smart on Beal and Wall respectively, and put Thomas on Porter, and hope that Porter doesn't have a great series so that Boston can even out. That is leaving too much to chance, and you don't want to leave something to chance in the round 2 of an NBA playoffs. Good news for Boston, well, sorry to say, against the Wizards, there isn't much. Yes, they are an incredibly good team. Yes, they are incredibly well coached. In my opinion, better coached than the Wizards. And yes, when they hit their threes, they are unstoppable. But in my opinion, I think that's about where the advantages for Boston finish up. But concerns for Washington. Now, the rest of the team needs to show up. Now, I addressed this earlier. The rest of the team didn't show up, maybe because, well, they really just didn't show up, or because Beal and Wall were taking the series to the Hawks. But in this case, Boston is a far more elite defensive team than the Hawks. What they can decide to do is, listen, we will focus entirely upon Beal and Wall and force the rest of the team to beat us. They'll try and make your shots or get your layups. And that's not a place you want to be in a second round of playoffs. Sure, that there will be games where the rest of the team does show up, but this needs to be consistent if the Wizards decide they want to make a series out of this and finish up the Celtics in 5 or 6. Obviously, the plus point for Wizards, which is a minus point for Boston, like I mentioned earlier, is that they have two massive big guards. Right now, during the Chicago series, what Chicago kept doing was that they kept switching Isaiah's guy on Jimmy Butler's guy. So Jimmy Butler ended up matching up with Isaiah and then continuously taking advantage of that mismatch. In this case, there's no switch that needs to happen. Both depend. If during a defensive assignment Thomas ends up getting on Beal and getting on Wall, these guys can easily take him one-on-one. I don't see them having much difficulty. That's a huge advantage for the Wizards. Washington, in my opinion, are clearly the better team here, but Boston are extremely well coached, and when they're hitting their shots and flowing seamlessly on defense, can be a really, really hard team to beat. I still believe the Wizards will take this series. In my opinion, Wizards in 6. Thank you for watching. If you think you got something better to say, please leave a comment and definitely check out my other playoff review videos.